Hello everyone. I seem to be having a few difficulties technically, so I'm going to push on. We'll see how we go. Welcome to another Voice Essentials live hangout. We do this every Monday at 2 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Thanks for jumping in and joining us for what I hope promises to be a really interesting discussion today. We're going to be talking about the topic of mixed voice. It's a controversial subject in many respects, and in fact, I asked a question. We'll have a look at the community question that I asked over the weekend, and we'll see some of the variety of responses that we got. But hopefully, that's all going to prove for interesting fodder for our discussion. Let me just take another quick look back and make sure that. It would appear that we've got YouTube is telling me I've got a bad stream, but I'm hoping that that's going to sort itself out. We will persist, and hopefully it all goes okay. You know how these live, the technology, it's great and it's equally terrible. And anyway, it's great to see so many people already jumping into our live discussion. Good to have you all here. Yahui and Linda and Karen, Matt, Duran, Moa Power for Alls. Nice to have you. John from Toledo, Ohio. Yeah, let us know where you're from. Nice to see you, John from Toledo, Ohio. Let us know where you're from, what the weather's like. We woke this morning to probably the first true autumn day. Put it this way, when I got up, I had to put on a what we here in Australia call a dressing gown to sort of stay a little bit warm after hopping out of bed for the first time. It was wonderful. I am a cold weather person. I prefer the cold weather to the hot, and so it was nice finally to hit autumn. I know many of you just starting to jump into springtime. Obviously, John from Toledo, Ohio is starting his springtime if you're in the Northern Hemisphere. But here in Oz, we are starting to get nice and chilly, which is awesome. And I'm just double checking back. Yeah, YouTube is still telling me I've got a bad run. And perhaps, Linda, if you can just indicate to me via text or just let me know that everything is running okay. Oh, Linda's saying, so far, clear as a bell. Awesome! Okay, well, with that, let's get into today's show.
Sound check. Check 1, check 2.
So today's show, and this is a controversial subject, and I just want to give a shout out to Kate Baker. For those of you who watched the show last week, Kate joined us as a part of the show, and I think you'd all agree it was a really great chat with her. We ended up going the angle of talking about TV talent shows because right now in Australia we've got The Voice currently going on. In America you've got Idol, and in the UK, I believe in the UK, I didn't realise this, but you've got Britain's Got Talent that's just fired up. So it's TV talent show season. So we ended up talking about that. I'm going to get Kate back on the show later in the year, hopefully, and we'll be able to have a good old chinwag about the topic that we were going to talk about, and that is terminology. And in fact, Kate, around about a week and a bit ago, had invited me into a discussion about the subject of mix register. Now, I didn't actually have the opportunity to jump in and get involved in that discussion, but I thought it would be really great opportunity for us to have a chat. Now, I'm just having a look here, and it appears that has our chat stopped? I'm just looking here, everyone. It seems unable to. Please try again later. It's saying our chat is no longer live. Why is that? I can't think of why that would be. Everyone, just bear with me for the briefest of moments, and I'll see if I can't refire that chat up. And hopefully that'll get it started again. I don't know whether it is going to get it started again. Yeah, for some reason I can see you on one page and not on another, everyone. So apologies. It's the technology doing that again. Okay, so this whole subject matter of mixed voice is so controversial. When I scheduled today's live hangout, I have to do it in the back end of YouTube, etc. When I scheduled this live hangout, I went back just to check everything was okay about a couple of hours later. Already, before I'd even, it's sitting there, it's open, people can see the link. It had already received 2 thumbs down. The live hangout hasn't even happened yet, and someone, or a couple of people, have already given it a thumbs down, and they haven't even heard what I've got to say about the subject. This is how controversial this subject of mixed voice is. But we can see him like Harry Potter Invisible. Keep it going, it's fine. Yeah, for some reason I can see your discussion, everyone. But for some reason it's stalled. The discussion has stalled, and I don't know why. I think I'm going to try something. Just bear with me while I just briefly give this a try, because I think the pop-out chat, yeah, there it is. I think that is what has happened. Give me the briefest of moments, everyone, and I think I'll be able to bring us back to the right thing. Thanks, everyone. You guys are so patient with this whole live hangout bit, and I really appreciate it. As you know, there's only really me doing the tech side of things. Of course, we do have our wonderful people, Linda and Karen, observing, and even Linda's taken on the extra responsibility of texting me should anything go wrong. So it looks like we've got it all sorted now, and it was just from a previous tech issue that I had before we started. Anyway, so let me just jump across to the discussion of the conversation the question that I asked during over the weekend. This is the question I asked: what does the term mixed voice mean to you? There were four opportunities to answer that question, and 5 options. It is a tonal mix between lower register and upper register. About 2/3 of people felt that was a good description. 12%, it is a separate register between head voice and chest voice. I'm completely confused by the term mixed voice. Yeah, and that's part of the reason why we're doing today. So hopefully for those 15% of the 433 votes that we've had so far, hopefully we'll be able to clarify a few things today. And then the term is misleading and shouldn't be used by singing teachers. And interestingly, and I don't think this was the same people who gave the thumbs down, but there was a person who left a comment on this question, and they had a very strong opinion. I think they've since deleted that comment, and in fact, this here, view comments held for review, I've tried to figure out how I can't even see that comment, because when I do that, it just does that, and so I can't, maybe there's I don't know what's happened there. So, but that person removed their comment. Maybe he thought he'd been just a little bit too direct. Anywho, so coming down here, what I wanted to highlight Vincent's response here and say that so Vincent thought it is a tonal mix between lower register and upper register. And the word tonal is a key word here. And Vincent, you picked up on it. I didn't do it intentionally. I wasn't trying to trick everyone. But do you know what? I actually agree. I think the word tonal is the key point here. Now, what I want to do is And so thanks again for everyone who participated in that questionnaire. It's always good to know, what we're all thinking about these subjects. What I want to do is just take us to, I've got a couple of definitions in this book here. So this is called, now you'll have heard me quote from this book many times. This is a dictionary for the modern singer, edited and collated by Matthew Hock, who was once upon a time, when he wrote this, he was an up-and-coming. I think he's sort of gone beyond that. I think Matthew is a really highly regarded singing pedagogue, an American singing pedagogue, and one of the reasons for that is in fact this text. Now, this is a dictionary. That's not going to give us a definitive, big explanation about this subject. But I just quickly went to the topic of mixed register. So I went to M and looked it up. And actually Matthew has really captured the issues surrounding mixed register. So I just wanted to take a moment and first of all, let's quickly have a read of what he has written here. So the first, he's actually got two entries. He's got the first entry is mix. This is on page 113, and it says a contemporary commercial music (CCM) term used to describe a register that is somewhere in between CT, that is cricothyroid, and chest, TA, thyroarytenoid voice. So somewhere between head and chest voice. Some schools of CCM pedagogy, for instance, that is the somatic voice work, that's the Jeannie Levitri school, describe two different kinds of mix, head mix and chest mix. Now, interestingly, I haven't written the entire entry in here. Let me go on to just quickly read for you the rest of the entry. And he writes here, while mixing certainly occurs in classical music, the term is used with more frequency among CCM singers and teachers, particularly in the music theatre genre, where mix often becomes necessary when singing high in the female belt range. Can I also just go back to this term CCM? Some of you may not have heard this term, CCM, which stands for Contemporary Commercial Music, coined by Jeanette Levitri. Now, I will say to you all, I personally don't like the term. Nothing personal to Ms. Levitri. It's just that CCM is already being used so widely as a term, and so I tend to use a different term coined by Associate Professor Di Hughes down at Macquarie University called PCM, Popular Culture Music. So I think it's a more appropriate term. Nonetheless, we're getting into semantics there. Back to the final part of this definition. The term mix is also used in combination with other words to subjectively describe various timbres and styles. Examples include such hybrid terms as belt mix, pop mix, rock mix, and others. The terminology, while used with frequency in music theatre listings, is not at all standardized. That is probably the most important little point right at the end. It is not at all standardized. This is one of the challenges we have currently in the world of learning to sing and in the world of teaching singing. There really isn't a codified language. And in fact, I've got a video that I've just written the script for that I'm going to release sometime in June, where we talk a little bit more about these terms, because the interesting thing about learning to sing is one person can say mix voice, and the person that's hearing that person use that term may completely misinterpret what that person means. Before we discuss this any further, let me quickly go to what is the second listing. And I just want to come back over here and double check that I haven't. Oh, where am I? Oh, okay. I just popped this out. Sorry, everyone, just bear with me. So I'm just double checking some commentary here. Now, let me come over to here, and I can see Karen. Oh no, I misinterpreted what I glanced there. So let me show you the second entry that the second entry that Matthew has written into the book. He writes, and this is the second entry titled Mixed Register, refers to a balance of TA mode 1 and CT mode 2 registration in singing. While the vocal folds are ultimately more engaged in one mode register than the other, modification of the acoustic space in the zona de passaggio can give the singer the feeling and the listener the perception of a third mixed register. Now, zona de passaggio is that point between the primo passaggio and the secondo passaggio, those 2 points, if I'm not mistaken. It's not a term I regularly use, but the point here being is, and I particularly like this section that says, some people think of the mix as being a register. Now, he then goes on to say, Matthew goes on to write that the mixed register concept is controversial among vocal pedagogues, many of whom do not acknowledge it as a true register. That would possibly be me. I've never thought of mix as being a standalone registration. I personally probably gravitate to the definition that 2/3 of respondents to my little straw poll would suggest, and that it's an acoustical mix. It's a gradiating of between the two, what I know many of us here have called head voice and chest voice in the past. I refer to as shortener dominant and lengthener dominant. And it's that, and the great thing about what I personally like about the Thurman and Welch model of registration is actually the use of the term dominant. And the term dominant allows for the recognition that when you are in lower register in a TA dominant, or what some people now are calling mode 1, it is not wholly and solely thyroarytenoid muscle. It is actually a predominantly thyroarytenoid muscular activity with some CT, some cricothyroid engagement. And so we've got this tug of war. Ultimately, we could go as far as to say that everything, basically from lower register right up to the top of upper register, everything in that is a mix. It's just how much of one do you have as opposed to the other? What is the ratio? So, for example, let's give you actually, I'll come back. I'll give a verbal, a singing example in a moment, but I'll just finish off Matthew's definition here, and that is the term is most frequently encountered when discussing the middle range of the singer and in reference to the transition that occurs between chest, TA, mode 1, and head, CT, mode 2, and that's where I sit. In this sense, mixed register refers to the gradual and subtle shifting between registers to eliminate abruptness and give the illusion of a smooth and seamless tone quality throughout the range of the singer, also called coordinated register, which was new to me when I read that this morning as I was doing my preparation for today. This idea of a coordinated register, I don't probably resonate with that so much, in the sense that we want the whole thing to be coordinated. And herein lies the difficulty even of the term mix, is that the whole thing is a mix. in fact, a friend of mine who's going to be on the channel, on the live hangout later in June, a good friend of mine, now I've gone blank. Oh, come on, Daniel. It'll come to me. Anyway, she says, I'm really disappointed in myself that I can't remember her name, because I've just gone completely blank there for a moment, and I'm looking up at my library to see if I can see her book, but I cannot. Singing and the Actor. Help me out, Karen. Who wrote Singing the Actor? Anyway, she's going to be on and she was the one that said to me, well, I don't really like the term mix, because the term mix, everything is a mix. And I kind of agree with that. I think, and so this perception that there's this separate register now is probably not as accurate as I would want a term to be. For those of you who are still wondering, what is Daniel going on about? A short and a dominant, or what we're saying is a TA mode 1 register would be ya. I hope that's not too loud. I'll turn this down for a bit. Ya. So it's got full bodied to it. If we go to CT mode 2, what many of you in the past have called head voice, ya. So it's quite light. If I go to what many people refer to as mix register, ya. Now, you can immediately hear there is a change in volume. That is actually not what I'm using to determine the difference, though that is often the outcome. And that is by virtue of, as the thyroarytenoid muscle becomes more engaged, there is more surface area, in keeping also with typically a little bit more air pressure subglottally, directly below the vocal folds. Because there's more surface area of the vocal folds coming together, we then get a larger sound. And so you can hear that movement between the two. And that's why I personally gravitate and tend to find myself thinking of it not as a register, but as a grading of between the two registers of mode 1, mode 2, or however you would like to say it. And you can hear, even as I've been talking about it today, that, the language can be a little bit clunky, can't it? And, by talking about this subject today, I didn't want to suggest that I was going to solve the world's, conversation about this. This is just where I currently sit with it, and I can see Karen's been making some comments, and I'm sure Karen, I don't even know whether Karen and I agree on this subject as far as the way she perceives it. And so it's not a matter of, I guess we have to be very careful, don't we? Where, it's not a matter of, if one person thinks one thing, they're right or they're wrong, or if another person thinks another thing, they're right or they're wrong. There is ongoing discussion about this, and it's something that, registration is probably one of the top 3 most discussed, debated, controversial subjects in the world of voice science meets voice teaching. And so it's a challenging area, and so I thought I would take an opportunity to sort of, I don't know whether I've just made the discussion, the subject a whole heap more confusing for you. Hopefully by showing you those definitions that are included in Matthew's text, and it must be said, I don't think I'm wrong in suggesting that Matthew is a classical singing teacher, but nonetheless, that's how I tend to see it. Hey, let us know in the comments. Gillian Kays, thank you. I kept going to say Kays. That is, I've just seen Karen's comment. It is Gillian. Gillian, if you are watching this, sorry, my brain just went blank there for a moment. I've known Gillian for, I think, over a decade, so she can give me a slap on the wrist. Doug's just jumped in here and said Messa de Voce. Messa de Voce, I think you will hear a change. You can certainly hear a change in the registration acoustically with Messa de Voce, but we're also implicating breath flow upon that very intentionally. Messa de Voce is another whole subject. It can be a standalone subject, Doug, but interesting point. Doug's outed himself as the person. Oh, were you, Doug? I can't remember, Doug, whether you were the person that made that commentary yesterday. You were, because I remember seeing that point that you made. Intrinsic meaning of mixed voice is nil. And so there you go. Even Doug's got some interesting comments to make there, and certainly what we're not trying to do today is get into a debate. I wanted to show you some definitions where I probably sit currently. I acknowledge that, as we continue to learn more about the singing voice and about the science behind it, and more research is done into this area, I may well need to change my view and keep up with our discovery about voice, and so I remain open to that. But currently, what I've described during today's session is probably where I sit. I want to get to some questions now, and we're going to answer 2 or 3 questions to finish off today's live hangout. I hope you've enjoyed the subject matter so far. Give the video a thumbs up. We need to counteract those 2 negative thumbs. You're more than welcome to give the video a negative thumbs down if you think that what we've been going on about today is a whole heap of rubbish. That's okay. I just don't think you're allowed to give a video 2 thumbs down when the video hasn't even gone live yet. Come on, people. What are we doing here? Okay, let's see if we can. I'm just going to come over to this one actually. Let's come over here and let's start having a look at some questions. So much good conversation again, the technical side of things obviously was working, the health looks good, and that's all good. Okay, so jumping back over here, everyone. Karen's saying, how do I always miss these polls? Karen, you've got to go to the community tab on my channel. In fact, I don't know whether I can easily show it, and I might be able to. There we go. So you've got to sort of go to this area up here, the community. I think it comes up in. Yeah, I don't know how it comes up, to be honest. I don't know. But anyway, that's how you can answer the questions. Linda's actually giving us instruction there, which is good. Thank you, Linda. Matt's got a question, as he often does. Does this mean that a classical operatic bass doesn't have a mixed register? Well, not according to the way I would use it, as I just described, because we are able to, move through registration. Range being different to register in the sense that when we talk about range, we're talking about low to high, but when we talk about registrations, we're talking about the tonal balances that you choose to place at any given moment along that registration, I would think my response to that, Matt, would be no. A bass certainly can have a mixed register. It will sound very different to my registration, my mixed register as a tenor, but I would dare say it's definitely there. Doug's saying here, a mixed register is an improper coordinative relationship. Mixed voice may be used to describe a tonality, but does not address function. Yes, and that's Doug. That's probably where you and I would differ at this stage. But I welcome your thoughts in the chat. Um, um, Now, Karen's saying she's starting to lean more toward non-classical styles rather than CCM or PCM. Thank you for putting the PCM in there, Karen, because it's not always commercial and not always popular. Yeah, which is why yeah, okay, that's a good point. That why call it popular? I'd have to take that up with Dyer, I guess. Tika, I always get your name wrong, Jakita. I want to say Jakita, but that's not right either, is it? How do you know if you're singing in mixed voice? Well, it really, and this is where some would say that you are going for a sensory level thing. There is a sensory difference to it, but it's more about the tone. You'll hear a balance between that upper, lighter tonality and that lower, more full-bodied. It's kind of a mix between the two, and that's why I use the term mix. I've got to say, though, and I've said this in another video, I use the term mix very sparingly because I think it is a confusing term, and I'm constantly looking for language and semantics that have clarity in their communication and are not so loaded. Whenever a new student steps into my studio, they bring with them a history of language and terminology that is preloaded, that the moment I start talking, I might be saying one thing, but they're hearing a completely different other, and mix is one of those words that's heavily loaded. So it's an area, it's a challenging area of discussion, and I know that there are some people that really feel they've got the absolute answer on it. I hope I haven't communicated myself like that today. I'm just telling you how I currently use the term. Coming down here, Jason Johnson, I tend to use a sort of mixed registers, predominantly my head voice. I find that a dominant mixed voice is rather aggressive. And so that would suggest that you are leaning, Jason, more towards a lengthener dominant. And this is why I personally really love the Thurman and Welch model of registration. It works for me. I hear the clarity in its communication. You're going to more of a lengthener dominant upper register sound is what I hear you saying there, Jason. Okay, coming down, I want to give one more question away. I do resonate with what you're saying here, Doug. Unfortunately, bad singing is possible. Happens mostly. Some of my favourite singers are bad singers. It comes down to differentiating, doesn't it, between function and aesthetic. I do think one of the challenges that modern pedagogues like myself do have is that often, especially in popular culture musics or CCM, however you'd like to say it, we do have the challenge of, so many of the celebrity singers, people who the population would deem as successful. Not all of them, but many of them are employing poor technique. And so when someone like myself comes along and says, okay, they sound great, but we need to look for the same aesthetic values, but actually completely rework the functional values, therein lies a big challenge, because we're kind of, that will sound a little bit gobbledygook to your average person, I think, who's learning singing. Okay, everyone, I think that's enough for today. I think we've had a good old chinwag. Hopefully, like I said, hopefully I haven't completely muddied the waters for you. I really hope that has been a helpful discussion, and even the ongoing interaction you've had in the chat. Hey, if you're not watching this live, if you are watching this as a replay, thanks for tuning in. I want to hear your comments as well. Leave your comments in the description section, in the comments section below, and tell us where you sit in this subject. What is it about this subject that do you think creates the controversy? and let me know so that you and I can have a chat about it. Of course, if this is the first time you've ever joined me here at the Voice Essentials live hangout, welcome. I hope you've enjoyed the chat. We do this every Monday at 2 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, and we have other videos that go live every Wednesday and every Friday. This Wednesday, we are talking about falsetto. So we're kind of just continuing the discussion of registration, and I hope you'll tune in and give that a watch. What I hope you'll also do is today give this video a thumbs up. Let's counteract the negativity that kicked the whole thing off. Hopefully you'll do that. And also, if this is the first time you've ever watched one of my videos, please hit the subscribe button, hit the white bell icon, because we would love for you to join our ever-growing community of singers from across the globe who, just like you, want to raise their voice in song. I hope you'll do so. I look forward to seeing you in the next Voice Essentials video. I'm Dr. Dan. Sing well.